Welcome back to Steel Bear Academy. My name is Jonathan. Today we're going to be cleaning the Sig Sauer P226. This is a 9mm. So first things first, we got a few cleaning products here. I've gone over them in other videos, but I'll go over them again real briefly. We have our rod. We're going to need a 9mm or .38 caliber brush and a rod to go with it. So this is a brass. This is a brass brush. And we've got some sort of cleaning product. So I've got CLP here. I was using that for a different gun. I use Ballistol primarily, so maybe we'll use that this time. I got some other cleaning products here. This is a Hoppy's foaming gun cleaner for copper and lead and fouling. This is an old reliable Hoppy's number 9. People like to use that one. I might use that one here just for fun. Sure, why not? We'll just use this one for fun. So this is actually a two-stage process. So you always want to make sure that you pour your Hoppies into something, some sort of receptacle. You don't need much, but I remember the first time I bought some of this, I would just take my brass brush and I would dip it directly into the Hoppies. And I think what ended up happening was the Hoppies would disintegrate my brushes. So I don't do that anymore because otherwise it'll disintegrate into the Hoppies and then you'll be applying brass everywhere. We're actually going to be using a little bit of grease on this gun. So this is red and tacky grease. I forget what brand it is, but it's the one that you can buy in the automotive store. There are many other types of grease. You could just use white lithium grease, but this is, I think this is red lithium grease, but color is kind of irrelevant. I think it's still lithium, but it's, yeah, it's called red and tacky. And I'll show you how to use that for what we're going to use it here for. I've got a safety blade or a razor blade. This can be useful for certain things, although probably not for this gun. I've got a toothbrush, just a regular old toothbrush. Make sure you don't use that one on your mouth afterward. And I've got an eyelet for running through the bore afterward with our patches. So got some patches here as well. All right, so let's get started. First things first, we've got to make sure our gun is unloaded. So make sure there's no ammunition on your table. I've got my mat here. Make sure we point the gun safe direction, you know, safety rules, all that. So we're gonna lock the gun open. We just rotate this lever down and then gently lower the slide and the gun will come right off of its rails here. Next, we're going to push forward onto the recoil rod. Sorry, the recoil spring guide rod here. That just comes off like that. And this spring, I think, does come off if you pull hard enough. We don't need to take it off of the guide rod, so I think it does come off, but don't need to take it off. And then from here, we just got to take our barrel out of the slide. I was just taking a look here, seeing what kind of interesting wear patterns we have on this gun, because this is a kind of an unusual gun that I've been doing a slightly different version of cleaning on. So I've been using grease on the rails. So if we take a look here, got my handy dandy pointer here. So on a SIG or any semi-auto pretty much with a slide, so you've got these rails here that are running the length of the slide. Those are running on the rails of the frame here. So it's running on these like so. Okay. Now the frame is made out of aluminum and the slide is made out of stainless steel. And so the part that's going to get worn is actually these rails. So when you're looking for used SIGs, this is the place that you actually look to see how much slide rail, aluminum slide rail, wear do these have. And so this one is pretty much brand new, so it shouldn't have much anyway, but I think I've probably got about maybe 1,000 rounds through this gun so far. It doesn't have much wear. And you can use oil, just like all these other guns, on the rails here, but this is a place where grease makes sense, so I'll show you how to use that when we get to it. So we've got our gun disassembled at this point. All the normal things are going to apply to any gun that we clean. We're going to start with a little Ballistol on all the parts. And I want to avoid getting any oil into the striker, well, it's not a striker channel, the firing pin channel on this gun. So that would be that little hole right there. We're just going to try to avoid getting any oil in there. We'll try to avoid getting any oil on the back of the firing pin here. Okay. So So don't need any oil on that, so we'll just try to avoid that happening. So I'm just applying using gravity to help me and just getting a liberal amount of ballistol. Oh shoot, I forgot I was going to use this hoppies. Okay. All right, forget that. Forget that I put this this ballistol on here. We'll do a little hoppies on, we'll do hoppies on this part, but we'll do ballistol on the rest of it, okay? So, sorry, I forgot. I'm just a little on autopilot when I clean guns because I don't really feel, it's like easy to forget what you're doing, okay? All right, so we got a little ballistol working on all the surfaces here. I'll wipe off the excess ballistol from the barrel here. And we're just gonna let that ballistol work its way, work its magic. We got ballistol in the rails as well. Wanna get some in there because there is grease in there. So one of the downsides of grease is that it doesn't like flush away as easily. It does require a little agitation to get rid of it, to get it moving. Okay, so we'll do a little ballistol on the slide rails on the frame itself as well. And same thing, notice how I'm using gravity to try to help me, because I don't need any of this ballistol down into the frame itself. I'm just using that to get the grease off of the frame, okay? Off those rails. Next we'll do little hoppies. So I didn't put very much in there, just a little bit. And we're gonna get a little bit on the brush here. See, it already changed color. It's getting stuff into it. And now we're just going to apply a little bit liberally to the gun, to the barrel here. Oh, there's that smell. So hoppies has a distinct smell, which some people have come to enjoy. It's its own smell. You'll recognize it once you've cleaned enough guns with it. It's like, it's not bad, but it's not, it sure doesn't smell healthy, let's just say that. So we'll get a nice little application of this. So hoppies is a cleaner. It's not a CLP, it's just a cleaner. We'll get a little bit of hoppies onto our brush here. And now I'm going from the chamber side all the way through and all the way back. All the way through, all the way back. Yeah, it's been a while since I've cleaned with hoppies. It is a potent smell. Okay. It's definitely less pleasant than the ballistol, that's for sure. All right, let's take a look here. Looks pretty good, but we'll do one more slosh of the ballistol. All the way through, all the way back, all the way through, all the way back. Okay. That probably will be adequate, so we don't need that brush anymore. Let's see here. It looks pretty nice in the bore. So what I'm looking for is I'm just trying to see, is it nice and shiny down there? Not sure if it'll pick it up on camera, but I'm just looking to see, is it shiny? That's one of the times when you might want to hold it up to the sun. It's looking nice and shiny. There's a little bit of something in there, like maybe some buildup from my brush or something, but it'll come out when we use the patch. Let's see, does this one fit in there? That one does fit in there. We'll get that prepared. Yeah, we'll just let that sit for a minute. Next we'll work on our frame here. So what we're looking for is we're basically trying to get the grease off of the rails, because grease is nice because it will stay put. It will, like, it doesn't flow very easily. It doesn't flow naturally. And so it will get stuck wherever it is you want it to be, which is great, except it will also not move away when you want to replace it. So that's the thing. Grease starts building up with dirt and grime and gunk, and then it starts accelerating the wear, actually, of whatever it is you've put it on. So oil is kind of like a safer bet. It's like, it will not give you as great of performance for the wear resistance, but it will give you more, like, lower maintenance, if you will. It'll give you lower maintenance performance. Okay. And so what I'm really trying to do is, the surface that really wants that grease to stay is actually up and into the corners here, the corners on the upper or the underside of the underside here of the rails. So that's the part that we actually want to get the grease out of. So we'll apply a little more ballistol here. No need to be shy. Ballistol doesn't hurt anything. Right now it's being our cleaner. And if things get really difficult, you could always use some hoppies if you want, because that's a dedicated cleaner. All right. But ballistol is nice because you don't really need to worry about it ever staying on anything. Hoppies, you want to make sure you replace the hoppies with an oil, right? Because you want the protection. You want the protection part of your solvent as well. Okay. Nice and gritty here. All right. Now we'll just do a little wipe down here on this part. And sometimes I like to bunch up the shirt and kind of use it as a cleaner to get into those rails here. So I can see that there's kind of like this white line. There's a white line building up on these rails here, on the kind of that upper undersurface. I'll show you in a sec. See if this comes up on camera. So that surface right in here is the part that is building up. So I'm not sure if it's just grease that has gotten stuck and kind of gunked up in there. We'll try using a little bit of this Hoppy's solvent and see if that helps us in any way. It's not like a huge deal, but I want to see what happens. Gun cleaning is not like a super exact science for me. I'm always experimenting with different things, seeing what happens with different products, seeing how it goes. So I'm basically just keeping this brush in kind of like a, trying to bunch it up so that it provides a little more rigidity as I rub it along that white line. It's very possible that's just some kind of caked on grease here. Or it might be slide rail wear, you know, it could be that too. I would be very surprised if it was that, because it's bright white, and bright white doesn't usually happen until a lot of rounds go through your gun. So it's probably not that. It's probably just grease, lithium grease that I didn't clean up the very first time I used white lithium grease. Okay. It looks like it's getting a little better, actually. Something nice about having an aluminum frame gun is you don't need to worry about keeping it free of that solvent, because yeah, the solvent will make it so that the oil is gone, but it will also make it so that like it's not as big a concern because aluminum can't rust. So it just looks to me like it's caked on lithium grease. That's what it looks like to me. So. You know, the ultimate test would be to take a little bit of steel, like this razor blade, and to, you know, kind of scratch at it, but the whole point is to avoid wear, so I'm not going to do that. Let's see. I could use my brass brushes, I suppose. Try a little bit of brass on here as well. Okay, so when you clean with brass, it's going to start disintegrating with this solvent. So you can see that I'm getting this kind of nice yellowish color on here. Let's see if that got any of it off. No, that didn't get any of it off, so that just might be wear. That might just be wear that's occurring. I'm actually a little surprised that it's happening as early as few round counts as we have on this, so we'll do another ballistol layer just to make sure that we've got any of that solvent off of here when we do our final wipe down. And I'll get some solvent onto the locking block, so that's this piece here. You could even get into the mag well if you want. Not necessary, but you could if you want to. And we'll do a little wipe down here. We'll wipe inside the dust cover. This is the dust cover, by the way. It's basically just the front part of the frame. I'm gently pulling the trigger so that I make sure I don't dry fire the gun, but just wanted to see the inner workings of this just for fun. Neat. Okay. All right, now we'll clean the slide here. So remember, this has been sitting with ballistol, and we'll scrub into the rails here as well. There should be some grease on these rails as well, on the steel portion of it, yeah, because it's going to be mating up with the aluminum rails down there. These nice little spots in here would be nice to get into with a Q-tip, but I don't have enough Q-tips brought out with me at the moment, so I won't do that right now, but that would be something that you would want to do at home. Okay. Okay, we'll do a little wipe down. The exterior of the gun does not really need any attention. Just a wiping will be fine, at least on this gun. Other guns, like blued guns, you would definitely want to wipe down the outside with oil. We didn't clean under the extractor, so we'll do that as well. Let's see. I put ballistol on this part, yeah. So I'll put a little ballistol on there. Same thing, we're just gonna let the gravity help us by not getting any excess into where it doesn't need to be. And I'm just trying to get into the underside of the extractor. So this little claw hook, so you see that little stick right there, that is the extractor, and it's just this claw here. So I'm trying to get underneath it on this side. And notice how I changed the orientation of the slide. I'm just trying to have gravity help me keep anything out of getting into the firing pin channel. We don't need any oil in there, so it's preferable to not get any in there. That looks pretty all right. All right, and we'll just do a final wipe down of this part. And then I'll kind of run I'll run the shirt bunched up into the slide rails to try to wipe away any grease that had gotten, that had been in there that we're trying to get rid of to apply new grease. And we'll get on the underside of the slide as well. And we'll kind of bunch the shirt up and run it in here as well. I'm just looking for any spots that have some wetness to it still. Look pretty good. Not bad. All right, now we'll get back to our barrel here. So if you remember, we used hoppies on this one. So this one has solvent on it, but no lube at the moment, no oil. So let's wipe it off and see what it looks like. So remember, there is a little bit of oil on my hand, so we might be, putting oil on it as we're doing this, but I'll show you what it looks like just to try to give you an idea of what this does. So this is solvent only. It's still pretty shiny, right? This barrel is made from stainless steel. Let's see what it looks like down there. Looks pretty nice. And now we'll take a patch and run it through the bore. Now some people like to, before we had done this process, some people like to dip a patch into hoppies and then run it through. I just kind of run it through. So we're just going to run it through a couple times. The hoppies probably is already gone, but we're just seeing if anything shows up still. It's all nice and very shiny in there, so I think we did a very good job of cleaning our bore. Let's see if you can see that. Very shiny in there, nice and shiny. You can see all those lands and grooves of the rifling cut into it. All right, and now, so with the two-stage process of using hoppies and an oil, you would then just apply some sort of oil to your barrel on the parts that would wear. So when you look at this barrel here, amazingly, there's hardly any wear at all. The only places I see wear are right here, on this ledge here, on the kind of underside of that lug right there, in there. And that's like it. A little bit on this shelf here, and a little bit on this shelf here. So very little wear on this barrel, but we'll just do a nice little tiny coating of oil, just a little bit. You don't need much. Just get that kind of moved around. Excess oil you don't really want, because it's just gonna get into, like when you start putting it in your holster and while it's sitting in your gun safe, it's gonna start moving and flowing out of your gun. And so what you need is just enough to get a nice little tiny film coating, a very, very thin film of oil on it. After that, anything extra is kind of wasted. So just put a little extra on that spot there, and that looks pretty good. All right, so let's put our barrel back in here. Should be nice and slippery in there. On the recoil spring, You don't really need to do much. I think just a, oopsie, just a nice little coating of oil will be adequate for that. And this was, you know, this I could have done less, but I'm gonna wipe it off with the shop towel here in a second anyway. So just a little bit of oil. Get that oil moved around in there. Okay. Now we'll reassemble. And then what we're doing is we are compressing the spring, pushing that stick forward, and then pushing that stick onto the little barrel shelf there. I'm not sure what that part is called. And I think it needs to go even lower, a little bit lower. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe that's right where it's supposed to be. All right. And then here's the last part. So this part's a little unique. We're gonna apply a little bit of grease. So I've got my lithium grease over here. And here's the thing. What you'll discover is that a little goes a long way, and even though this might look like not that much grease, this is an enormous amount of grease, way more than we will need to get onto these parts. Because remember, once the slide mates up with this, it's going to have very, 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 very thin space in between them. So here's what I do. So the grease is going to start migrating backwards. So you don't need a lot back here because it'll just come out the back. So we'll just put a little bit up here at the front, a little right here, and we're going to wipe away a lot of this, so don't worry too much about having too much because we're going to wipe it away. I'm basically trying to get up and underneath onto the underside of these rails here, okay? And I'll put a little extra on here just so you can see what happens. So I'm gonna put some right back here, and it's probably just gonna get squeezed out the back, but I'm gonna do that so you can see what it looks like. It's not a big deal if you do, it's just wasted, if you will, okay? All right, so we got a little bit of grease on those spots here. And now we are going to, I'm gonna wipe off the slide again just so it's a little more clear, this grease when it gets moved. So we'll put a little bit of grease, not necessary, but we'll put a little bit of grease on the locking block here. Just a little bit. Grease can be used like mostly interchangeably with oil. Oil is really good for, I think, internal parts like these parts here inside the trigger assembly, but grease can be used for, can be essentially substituted. It's just you have to clean it off more frequently to get, to refresh it, if you will. All right, so we're going to put our slide rails back onto our slide. So you see, as soon as I put it on here, it's just bunching up the grease. But that's okay. And it's going to come back, and then I'll run it through, lock it open. Okay. So you see it just bunches it up and pulls it to the back. So that's why I don't bother even putting any back here, because it'll start pulling all the way from the front. Okay. Now I'm going to lock it back down. And now we'll rack the slide a couple times, get that grease moving through there. Okay. And now we'll do another wipe and identify any spots that need some grease that we thought we moved it in there, but it didn't really get in there. Okay. Okay, so we'll lock it open, take a look here. Got a little grease in there, that looks good. And then we'll take it off and, we'll take the slide off one more time and see if there's any spots that need some grease. So it looks to me it looks kind of like there's a need for some grease right here because there's no grease. Okay. Notice how I'm just doing a nice little film. Not much is needed. And it's mostly, again, on the underside of this rail here. Anywhere else, like the top a little bit, but the underside mostly. Okay. All right, now let's put back on here, see if there's any needs for grease on this, on the underside of this slide here. Nice. Feels good, looks good. One more wipe, and let's see our work here. Always nice to have a pretty clean gun. It's always nice to admire it and see how it looks. All right, there we go. You get a little bit of lint built up from the shirt, but on a gun as rust resistant as this, you don't need to worry about that. But if you had a final wipe down before you put it back into your safe with like a microfiber cloth that had some oil, soaked in with oil, that would be ideal. That I actually have one of those in my safe, so that's what I will do my final wipe down with. But it's mostly cosmetic. This gun is very rust resistant. You wouldn't need to worry about that, but looks pretty nice. So that's my cleaning of a Sig 226. This one had a little bit of quirks, right? It's got some variation that you can apply to it to try to maximize durability. But you know, even if you had skipped the grease, you would have just put a little drop of oil into the slide rail, the same spots, and that would have done, it would have done an adequate job. It would have just been just a little teeny tiny bit less wear resistant, but a little lower maintenance. So that's kind of the pros and cons of it. If you're going to be really diligent and make sure you take really good care of your gun, then you might get a little extra durability out of using the grease. But these guns are used by, you know, the Navy SEALs and, you know, police and other you know, high need groups. And I'm going to guess that they probably don't use the grease. They probably just run brake free. I think this is what the military uses. At least this is one of the options, I'm sure. You know, you could probably do just fine with just a CLP. It's probably not going to affect your long-term durability. That's not going to be the factor. It's going to be, you know, spending the hundreds of thousands of dollars to shoot enough rounds to actually meet the point in which the frame, the rails, are the weak link of this gun, right? So, not to worry. You know, if you've got one of these guns and you don't want to put grease on it, hey, no problem there. I just wanted to show you another option. Thanks very much for listening. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.